to Guiding Stars. My name is Stephanie, also known as the Star Keeper.
And I'm also Stephanie, known as Starlyn.
Today we want to talk a little bit about how I feel that there is a societal bar drop that we're going through and that we have been going through for quite some time. And it's disguised as progress in a lot of ways. And I think that's where some of this confusion lies. And so I want to clear some of this up because we personally believe, and a lot of the spiritual communities and health conscious communities, and just people who are more aware of that it's more than just physical life, right? That humans are capable of exceeding our perceived limitations that we have today, that the human body in general is capable of healing itself. It's designed to. Nature is capable of healing herself as we are one with nature. And so we want to kind of dive into a little bit about how we should be striving for excellence. And we feel how society is rather how do you say that word?
I'm
Incentivized. Oh my gosh, I can't say that word. Let's say how society is rewarding people who are trying to achieve less or looking for excuses or are not really trying in life. There's more handouts than ever. There's more excuses than ever. There's more medication than ever, which is a whole other topic of this. And so I want to kind of dive into that. So, Star, how you feeling about that?
uneasy about it because, we, like you said, we have so much potential and, ultimately it's hidden from us, which is really sad. And we had a chance to chat a little bit ago before, and, we were talking about how Americans are really kind of have been dumbed down for quite some time. We have been
Yeah.
dumbed down for a long time. Other countries kind of like look down on us like we're kind of the idiots.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's behind the agenda for that? Why are
Hmm.
they doing this? Why is this happening to us? People are waking up more now, and we're realizing we have so much potential. There's so many things that we can do to make the world a better place, to make ourselves better human beings, and to tap into our own strengths and abilities, our own bodies. Because
Yes.
ultimately, we are nature, and nature is a beautiful, growing, loving, magical thing. And we are nature. We need to
Yes.
realize that. We need to
Yes.
get back to that.
Absolutely. So, we're supposed to be evolving, right? In a way where each generation is supposed to be becoming better, more intelligent, more compassionate, more advanced. You look at, we all have different gifts and abilities. You look at some athletes who climb to the absolute top of physical ability. And your average person would look at them like, wow, how are we capable of this? Or how are you capable of this? Or you look at some people who are just excellent minds and are able to rationalize, problem solve in such a way. And you look at them like, wow, how are you capable of this? Forgetting that we are all the same. Now, granted,
Mhm.
not everybody can be Usain Bolt. He's record breaking and highly capable. But the point is that we can strive to be the best that we are. And making
Mhm.
to your point of how, Americans and the school systems are so bad. Like, for example, I remember being a kid and struggling in math. Just couldn't grasp the concept. Numbers were always a weak point for me. And you see other countries where the children do math very easily. It's not challenging. They don't get like this blackout issue when you start mentioning numbers. They can
Mhm.
figure out change and simple issues. And I feel like a lot of the time the issue is that we're not taught why we should know things, like the application behind it. The incentive was the word I was looking for before.
Yeah.
The incentive as to why I should know how to do this. How does it play out in real life? You ask most people, well, why do I have to know Pythagorean theorem? Why do I have to know all this stuff? I'm never going to use it. And the sad part is that there's a lot of information that has been hidden from our past, occulted, and taught us how to use these methods, why they were originally created, and help you actually understand the world around you, right? These things that we've
Mhm.
created and come up with in methods is really to help us understand our place in the world, how to measure things, how to build and structure. And instead, we're just taking notes, passing a test, and throwing out of our mind later. You're only learning and absorbing what you think you need to know just to get through a class, not to better yourself as a human being, not to understand, oh, these are vital aspects that we need to learn and accumulate. Or even in gym class, right? You're not taught the physical excellence that you can be. Instead, it's walk around the gym or play volleyball. Okay, you're done. Goodbye. Right? There's a lack of engagement, a lack of understanding, and I also feel that modern day schooling is, at this point, I think we should face it, phasing out. It's
Yeah.
all about memorization.
Mhm.
And why do you need to memorize anything in the age of technology? I have everything I need at the tip of my fingers,
Right. Right.
right?
Well, and going back to what you were saying, I also have had struggles with math too my whole life. And, an important thing that I realized when you were talking is I did pre-algebra every single year in high school. Never once did anybody in the school system say, hey, let's get you to the next level. It was like, oh, okay, well, if you're struggling and it's not that good, well, this is the lowest class you can take. And as long as you keep passing it, then you're good to go. You'll get the credits and you can graduate.
Mhm.
I feel like we're failed by the system. And the reason that we just take notes and memorize things just to pass a test and we don't actually absorb that in our consciousness is because we're not being guided to. We're just being taught to do just enough to be working individuals to contribute to the society, but not powerful enough, not strong enough in our minds to know that we're bigger than that. We should strive to do the best that we can to succeed, but we're not given those tools. And unfortunately, a lot of people, they just go and live through their lives and they're like, okay, well, I'm just supposed to do this, I'm just supposed to do that, and
Mhm.
this is all I'm ever going to be. And then
Exactly.
they fall into that structure of eating bad foods
Exactly.
and then you get depressed and you just live this miserable life. And it's really easy to just let the system kind of tell you what to do, where to go, when you need to renew your license, when you need to do this, doctor checkups. We're like zombies.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
it doesn't need to
100%
be
agree.
that way.
I 100% agree. I believe that there's a disconnection that is obviously occurring on purpose, like you said, to keep us in a state of being intelligent enough to get basic tasks done,
Yeah.
to work jobs, to, move society in a certain direction, but not intelligent enough to say the questions of why can I make this better, right? They don't want us to question and to become a problem for the structures that have been created.
Yeah.
Um, and with the modern day school systems, I believe a lot of people are getting back to homeschooling because now you're sending your kids to school again, not to really learn anything you want to learn. And I don't agree with the information that's in school anyway, but if
Mhm.
you wanted to look up a history date, again, I question history and I question science. I don't believe a lot of this stuff, and we'll get into all that later on, but you can look up, the distance on Earth from one location to another, and you just look it up. Technology is not going anywhere. We can all admit that. And
Yeah.
so going to school to learn these things is tedious and unnecessary. So now at this point, you're only going to school to be taught social justice stuff. You're being taught now about critical race theory. You're being taught now about, you know, that boys and girls are interchangeable and there's no differences. It's almost like rather than going to school to memorize facts, such as what was happening when we were in school, now
Mhm.
you're going into school to actually be restructured to go out into society to deconstruct it. That's
Right.
what's occurring now. So I feel like there's a push of people realizing that I think school's outdated. I don't think it's necessary. Maybe it's time for homeschooling. And in doing
Right.
so, I think a whole new idea of a school system should change to progress society because we really do need to focus on the fact that, we're of the age where we're building, but the most important is who are we going to hand this down to,
Mhm.
right? What are we going to hand down the legacy for what? If the children are being brainwashed and manipulated and turned into weapons against society, then what are we doing fighting, right? So
Right.
if we're not fighting and reteaching, restructuring, then we're going to be part of that losing battle. So I believe the foundational information that needs to be passed down to kids is really having them understand why they are learning. I believe the
Mhm.
practical application for learning has been long forgotten. Why am I learning this? This way, you're not just learning it to pass a test, because that was an answer for me most of the time. Well, why do I need to know this? Because it's going to be on the test.
Right.
Not why should I know this? Oh, because it matters in my daily life to understand how systems work, to understand how, for example, water goes through these phases. Why would I need to know that? Most people think, okay, why, to make ice cubes? No, water is a consciousness. Nature is alive, and we should be understanding and absorbing this information and going outside and showing kids,
Yeah.
the ecosystem is the greatest teacher. I mean, it's fascinating how we take in children, put them in a box, make them sit down for 8 hours a day, wonder why everyone's on ADHD medication, wondering why the kids are distracted with TV, and everything like that. We've lost connection to who we are. We've lost connection to the earth. We've lost connection to what we're designed to do, which is question and create and to live.
Right. Well, the beautiful thing about the days that are happening right now that we're so thankful to live through, even though it's uncomfortable, is the awakening process. So I have two teenagers and a toddler, so I'm very involved in the Instagram community, uh, with the moms and supporting them with the schools and the mandates. And, what I have seen is that this awakening has caused such an awakening in the mothers. I mean, and I'm
Yes.
not saying that fathers aren't involved, because they are,
No.
but like, come on, we can't, these are our children. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely not, things are not going to happen. So, with this awakening, the moms have also started to realize that the schools are jacked up. They're messed up. So they're not just, they're starting with one problem,
Mhm.
and then they're realizing that the school district is a problem, the people working for them is a problem, where they're getting their money and how they're funded is a problem, but they're also realizing that the structures are really not working. And
Mhm.
I've seen a lot of moms pulling their children out of school and starting micro schools.
Oh, I
So
love
one
that.
of my best friends, she moved from California to Oregon because she's done with California. And her son goes to a micro school where it's on a ranch, and they spend time inside and then they spend time outside gardening, learning about the animals, like, you
Skills.
know. And what I was thinking is, all of these years that we're in school, okay, those, especially when you're growing, you're going from a young child and you're growing into an adult, those are very vital years to actually absorb real legitimate information. We are wasting our time teaching crap in
Yes.
school. We need to teach, and I'm a firm believer that it's actually like literally feet are on the ground right now, and it's going to kick off in the next couple years. But
Yeah.
the thing is that we need to teach how to communicate with other personality types, how to
Hmm.
garden, how to start a fire, how to do the Boys and Girl Scouts type of stuff.
Yes.
We're wasting our time learning about fake history and math stuff. Yes, we need to learn math, but let's go out and figure it out. Okay, I
Yes.
need to learn how to build. We're going to build a shack, and we need to know how to do the numbers, to do the math, to make sure we get the right equations so nothing is off and when everything fits perfectly. That's what we need in the school systems. And I
Yeah.
feel it's coming.
Yeah.
I really do.
I agree. I agree. I'm watching this move, and I'm so glad to hear that you are feet on the ground, as you said, really, really getting a part of this, and getting even your children involved in this. And like you said, it's a beautiful thing, because you have to be outside in reality, right? You're sheltering children from the world because we've created the world to be a dangerous place, but we're not wondering what are the steps that led us here.
Mhm.
Like, for example, these mask mandates that have occurred. Was anyone wondering what this does to a child's psychology? I
Mm-mm.
watched a video, a scientific study, before the mask or anything like this, um, where they had a toddler, couldn't, not at the age to speak or anything, just, sitting in the chair, making noise, clapping the hands with their mother. And the mother was told to react to the baby as normal. And then at some point, when they turn a light on or told her when in the earpiece, I forget what it was, to stop reacting to the baby, mother stops. Baby immediately starts going into distress mode.
Yeah.
You can't read your facial structures. You're not emoting. You're not doing anything. There's no reaction. The baby instantly went into distress. And as soon as the baby got into distress, they stopped it, and the mom was able to respond again. But now imagine these babies were born during the time with these masks on. And us knowing and seeing how politicians aren't following the rules, celebrities don't follow the rules, but children had to. Why children?
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, at these very young ages, this is when we absorb our reality. We don't need to be told what reality is at this time. You are absorbing it, learning, seeing through experience, seeing through the facial expressions, seeing through physical touch, sound, all that stuff. And it's so crucial. And we just damaged, not that it's not reversible, but we just damaged psychologically a whole generation of children who just
Yes.
stepped into the world at this age. And we let it happen because we were too afraid to say no. People are too trusting in these systems. And so, again, I'm glad to see that, in our lifetime, in the next few years, that this is dismantling, because it is so unnecessary. And they just showed everybody what length they're willing to go to inflict trauma, to start programming a new system. It's basically what they're doing. It's this fear and problem reaction solution that they're doing, and they're enforcing it on the children so early so that they grow up and they don't question. But we really do have to get back to what is natural. What are we supposed to be doing? What is science, if it's not questions?
Yeah. Well, back to like the psychological damage on these children with these masks. It hits me personally because I have a toddler. He's 4 years old, and he's, in my opinion, vaccine injured, but there's absolutely no way to ever really get that confirmation. So happy, healthy boy, babbling early, doing everything early. After his 1 year injections, which we went very, very low, like slow. You only get like 1 or 2 each time, and they thought we were nuts.
Yeah.
After his 1 year vaccination, he stopped talking, stopped making sounds, stopped trying to do anything. It was like mama all the time, trying to say dada, trying to say ball, went to nothing for 2 months. So we got him evaluated at a year old, and they put him on the spectrum for possibly being autistic. Well, it was after he had his live polio vaccination. In my mind, I'm certain that that affected something with my child. So fast forwarding to what we're going through today, my son had a very hard time. I mean, I did early intervention immediately, having therapists come to my house twice a week for almost 2 years to try and help my child out of this. And he was very low and slow with getting back into talking. So right when he goes into preschool, he's in the middle of the pandemic. So they're covering these kids' faces with masks. So now it was harder for him to even, you're learning from your peers, and you're looking at their mouth and their face, and you're trying to look at the face of your teacher who's teaching you, and there's no communication. It's lost. Thankfully, the teachers in his school, once the pandemic eased up a little, took all the masks off the kids, and it was optional for the parents. But since this pandemic, I don't know, I read it somewhere on Instagram that they've lowered the bar for the amount of words that children, like little toddlers, say, within their first few years because of this. It is ridiculous, and I know why and I have a really strong feeling as to why that they did that, mainly on the children, is because they're the most innocent. They have the highest vibration here on earth, helping us lift up. And it's like, go out with a bang. They're trying to do as much damage as possible. And that's when we have to stand up and say, no.
Yeah.
No.
And like you mentioned, now they're dropping the bar for what they're expecting children to be able to do, how many words. I mean, they're hiding the damage that has been done. They're hiding the evidence that we know. Just like now they're talking about heart attacks in children is a normal thing. Since when? Since when? Since we've introduced these experimental drugs into the body, the sacred bodies of our babies, of our children. And I'm so sorry to hear that this has personally affected you, not necessarily this injection, but the past ones, because this has been happening so long. If you look at the autism spectrum, it is skyrocketing. every day there's a statistic where it's more and more, what was it, 1 in 20 children, 1 in 10, now 1 in 4. This is not just happening. We are
Yeah,
not just getting worse.
right.
Medicine is supposedly increasing, and yet we're getting sicker. It's
Yeah,
time that we look and ask ourselves why.
yeah,
Would nature have done this to us? Nature has natural
no,
selection. Yes, there is, natural disasters and things like that, but not like this. Not like
no.
this.
And so many people are used to being told, like, oh, okay, you're under the spectrum for this. Oh, you have ADHD. Oh, your child is, just hyperactive, but we need to put them on this medicine. It's like society has gotten so comfortable with being like, once you're given a label, once
Yeah.
you're put in a
Yes.
category, you're like, okay, well, that's just how it is. I'm in this
Yes.
category, and I know many people in my category, but no, that's not true. And with autism, they have branched out their umbrella of being under the spectrum, because Asperger's is under there. I mean, like, you can have very,
Yeah.
very, very mild. You can have a child that is OCD, which I've always been my whole life,
Hmm.
and I could be considered under the spectrum for
Yeah.
autism. You're just
Yeah.
throwing it under the umbrella.
Whatever it is, right? And it's an excuse for more and more medication.
Yeah.
They're not looking at it like, okay, well, maybe you're just a creative and you can't pay attention. Maybe
And
you're
if
good at
we
something else.
and if we spent
And
all this time teaching the right tools in school, we would know.
yes,
We
yeah,
can.
if we were able to observe children. So I believe there needs to be a whole restructuring of
Yes.
what the idea of school is. Like, we can't just homeschool and take the curriculum home. We can't just homeschool and say, okay, I don't like this part, but maybe this part's useful. I think our whole idea, that because school is basically an experiment, right? We've been raising children longer than systematic government schools have existed. And we can take a look at that time span and say, well, we've decreased instead of increasing. So the homeschooling is not the experiment. That's not the risky one. That's the natural one. Mothers and villages have been homeschooling children for a very long time, and nobody is depressed. Or, if I won't say nobody, there's always a select few. There are things in nature that can exist. Not every disease or mental symptom comes from something, but those things are so rare and so small. The amount that we have today is entirely based on the society, the schooling structure, the medications, the reality that we have set up or have allowed to be set up on top of us by us trusting experts.
Mhm.
There's no experts. We're all learning. I mean, I remember being a child thinking adults must know everything. And here I am today, an adult, going, I don't know anything. And
Mhm.
you want to tell
Mhm.
me that I'm an authority in a field or anything? We should be constantly learning, constantly evolving. And
Right.
so wisdom has been lost, and our understanding of individuality and the way others structure and test taking and comparisons are not doing anything. And so what's
Right.
happening, like you said, with everything going under this umbrella, is that we're diagnosing regular human traits.
Yes.
Everything is going
Yes.
to be medicated by the time they are finished with us. That's the goal. Any
Yeah.
dystopian version of reality that they show us in movies or books is like pills for dinner.
Yeah.
Everybody's taking pills for dinner. And it's like, that's not going to be my reality. I don't know about everybody else, but
Right.
going
And
back to what worked.
yeah. And it all starts with school, in my opinion. Like, if
Yes.
we were taught in school the correct ways of, okay, well, like I was saying, me being OCD, I could potentially be under the spectrum for autism because it's like a repetitive habit. Well, if you're taught in school, like, hey, you just have high amounts of energy
Mhm.
and you thrive in these types of situations and scenarios, and you're not under an umbrella of a spectrum. You don't have something called OCD. You're just high energetic person.
That's
And this is
basically your way, or OCD is basically your way of coping with the pace that society set for you. And if you
right.
have more energy, it's like, well, then I got to do this 1,000 times, and you're, looping yourself, and basically they're telling you now it's a problem. It's just like, no.
Well, and it's like, I'm just like really OCD. Everything has to have a place and like be clean and like whatever. But it's like, if we were taught that, we're all different people, we think differently, there's different types of, love, there's different types of relationships, different personality types, and there's different types of energetic levels that people have as well.
Yeah.
And, what we need to be taught in school is the stuff that they're teaching for you in college. Okay, so a doctor, okay, teach the children stuff, how to take care of themselves in school. That should be something that they teach, you
Yeah.
know, hygiene. Don't just teach us where the organs are.
Yeah.
How do you take care of it? What does this organ thrive on?
Yeah, or teach the body as an energetic system like they do in Chinese medicine, like for example, they're teaching you about, the environment, but then we're spraying Roundup on dandelions.
Yeah.
Dandelions are incredibly healthy for not only our beings with detoxing,
See,
your
and I don't
regular
know
garden,
this.
yes, your regular garden weed is essential. And it also grows in areas where soil is depleted. It's trying to rejuvenate soil. And they show you Roundup, all these things have glyphosate and are killing people with causing cancer. And if we get checked on this, you can look it up. There are lawsuits and proving that these chemicals are cancer causing. And we've introduced all this stuff to eliminate the natural world, to hide what is right beneath us. Like, for example, perfectly manicured lawns do nothing for us.
Mm-mm.
No grass in nature exists the way we have lawns. And you
Right.
can't even in some counties, some areas, you can't even have like a garden in your front yard. They say it's a disturbance, or
Mhm.
it's an eyesore. You have to have a pretty lawn or something like that. And it's like, that doesn't serve a purpose. Why do I need to have a pretty manicured lawn? Why can't I grow a garden? So when you were mentioning about, in the school system, the first thing children should be taught is, why do I like my vegetables? Why are kids not liking vegetables? For one, they're not growing it hands-on. It's been proven that any child who gets involved with the growing process of vegetables gets very excited to eat it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're
Yep.
just being served this, first of all, most likely microwave food because mothers are too busy. Everybody has to work.
Mm-hmm.
So it has no nutritional value. It's soggy. There's no purpose. There's no connection to it. And, you're on the TV all day looking at commercials for McDonald's, and they used to have the Happy Meals with toys, incentives again for children. And we're wondering why we're so disconnected, why we're so lost, why we're so sick. The
It's a
simple
very
dandelion.
genius, effed up
Yes.
system. It's very
Yes.
genius because, the Happy Meal. My son's always like, what toy did I get? Well, that's teaching him constantly receiving, me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, okay, like the food is the most important thing, but it's genius how badly that it really is
Yeah.
for everybody. That the systems, it's been messed up, and I'm so glad we're dismantling it. And I'm so glad
Yeah.
that you and I connected and we're able to talk about these things. So people who don't know or haven't heard things, because we're not taught things, like I didn't know about
Yeah.
dandelions, had no
Yeah.
idea. I wish I knew that in school,
Yeah.
you know? And it's just, it's sad, but I'm happy to be living in this time where
Yes.
we can be the
Yes.
ones that are like, hey, guess what? This is not how it's going to be. We're going
Yes.
to change it. And
Uh,
there's a positive outcome.
as depressive as all this information when it comes in, right, of how zoomed out, how intricate this system is of depleting and degenerating us on health, on mentality, on everything. You're right, we do have to look at, like, okay, the fact that we're seeing it, the fact that we know, the fact that it's being revealed means that there's going to be solutions.
Yeah.
Right, for a long time this was happening and nobody was looking at it. We're just accepting, like, hey, McDonald's is going to give your kid toys for food, and your kids learning, oh, first of all, fast food, so it's an instant reward, right? So we're impatient, we have all this stuff going on, and these small things were reinforcing these behaviors, and nobody knew at the time. Everyone's too busy. No one's thinking that there's a mass plan to ruin the psychology of most humans and physiology. But you're so right. You're so right. In this moment today, every choice we make is to be a part of the answer, is to bring light that, yes, almost literally everything that we think we know or that we're taught or that is being preached by some system is actually here to harm us, is actually here to stray us away from nature, away from who we are, away from what we're supposed to be doing, away from what's best for us. But that doesn't mean that is the only path, that we have
Right.
to follow that. We're here looking at this and saying, you know what? I don't agree. So what can I do? How do I get around this, right? I learned about how bad the microwave is for you. I learned about it years ago. Some people in my family household still use it. That's their choice. But I decided that if I'm going to heat something up, I'm going to do it on the stovetop. If it takes a little longer, it takes a little longer,
Right.
I'm not going to nuke my food. I'm not doing it anymore. And at some point I was. So I don't judge
Mhm.
anybody who is. And for those who maybe didn't put two and two together and realize that you put something that took you maybe 4 hours to make and you put it in a microwave and it's hot in a minute, that doesn't make sense, right? There's got to be something wrong with that. But everybody is so busy and working, and we think, oh, a new piece of technology here to assist me. Sadly, it
Conditioned.
wasn't. Exactly. No
Mhm.
questions asked. Sadly, it wasn't. And so when I realized that, I made the choice to say, okay, so I got to get a pan out. I got to put it on the stove, and it's going to take me a little bit longer. No big deal. And I
Mhm.
haven't gone back, and it's been so easy. And it's just one small thing.
Mhm.
And so we can't beat ourselves up, because it's what I used to do is I used to look at this whole intricate system thinking, who the hell thought of all this, first of all? And what you realize is that it's layer on layer on layer,
Yeah.
slowly being added to the point where we are today.
And
And
fine-tuned. Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
yes.
Mhm.
And so many different minds behind it who are
Mhm.
plotting on ways to profit.
Yeah.
And you don't have to fix them all at once. You pick one, you fix that, you become aware of another, you fix that, and so on and so forth. Slowly but surely, it will become easier and easier to get away from these things that we once thought were good for us and now realize are here to harm us.
Right, because ultimately everything's been designed to harm us. Everything, even to the pan that you take out to heat up your food. I mean, we've literally
Yeah,
replaced
Teflon.
every single one of ours
Yeah.
because, so everything's been designed to
Mm-hmm.
harm us. But the coolest thing, okay, like out of every single thing that's bad and like, ugh, the
Uh-huh.
coolest thing in the world that I think is we are so magical. Like
Yeah.
just me,
Yeah, we are.
myself, just you, yourself, singular, okay? We are so flippin' magical in our own little selves. So,
Yeah.
like, when we get together with others that are like us and we just keep building and building and, like, oh, yeah, you don't maybe feel as great as I feel. Well, come on over here and hang out
Yeah.
with us. And then
Help.
you will because you'll
Yes.
realize you're the shit. You
Yes.
can create. We can
Yes.
all create. And the more of us that do it together, guess what? Things will get done faster
And
because it's
and
not a matter of like if things are going to change and get better. It's just a matter of like how fast
yeah.
do you really want it?
Because if you think about it, we've all been building destruction in a way, right? Deterioration for a very long time. And so now that we're waking up and we're like, wait a second, I don't really like where this is going. I find like-minded individuals. We can build so fast, like you said. It
Yeah.
won't take long at all before we start saying, well, what's good for humanity is good
Mm-hmm.
for nature. And what's good for nature is good for humanity. And if we start doing these things again, and people are going to look, it's going to be a bright, shining light. When you start hearing about the new schools that'll be coming up that are teaching kids about nature by hands-on nature, not worrying about teaching, nonsense. It'll be
Mm-hmm.
more like, I want my kid involved in that. Look how well these kids are doing. Look how adaptive
Yep.
they are. Look at their social skills. Look at their imagination.
Yeah.
And, it's going to be so, you can just envision it. It is going to be so magical, like you said, how quickly we restructure, how
Yeah.
fast those who maybe couldn't see it before, as soon as physical evidence starts to manifest
Mm-hmm.
of this new shift, how quickly it's going to catch the attention of others and say, you know what, maybe they look happier and healthier. I'm over
Yeah.
here taking all my pills, isolating from people, not trusting community, not trusting family, not trusting anything. They look great. They're,
Mm-hmm.
like, I think I might want to try that. And it's
Yeah.
contagious in the best way possible.
It really is, and my girlfriend in Oregon, whose son goes to a micro school on the farm, it's just the most amazing thing. And she's telling me that these schools are filling up quickly where she's at. And the thing is that the teachers and stuff who've been laid off because of, they didn't comply. Well, now these teachers are the ones that are starting these schools together. And it's beautiful because this community is growing. And I mean, I love it because there's a limited amount of people who are allowed in the class, and it's not even just your age. There's other age groups there because we're all learning the same thing. And I feel like that's really important. At first, when she was telling me her son's in a class with kids that are older and younger, I was like, what? How's that going to benefit him? But I'm thinking in the old the old world's way of,
Mhm.
school systems, how we lived through them. Well, no, this is great because right now there's so much damage on everybody on all levels, including myself and my parents and
Yeah.
above and below.
Ancestral, yeah.
That we all need to kind of learn together at the same time,
Yeah.
and it's really nice. I think it's beautiful that these schools are popping up, and it's just going to start happening all over, and
Yeah.
I love it. I
Yeah.
really
Well, it's our
do.
natural state. It's our natural state to be in community.
Yeah.
It's our natural state for, I look at the burdened families, the mothers raising children all by themselves. Like, if dad's too busy working, or if mom even has to work, the kids are getting raised by a babysitter whose only incentive, again, is, being paid. So it's like, we're built on help. We're built
Hmm.
on, if you had a community of mothers and one mother had something to do, something busy, you would be able to trust and say, hey, watch my kid for a while.
Right. Right.
Instead, we're so isolated. We don't know our neighbors. We can't trust them. We don't even
Hmm.
trust family. And
Hmm.
we're wondering why everything feels like a burden, why women don't even want to have kids, and how infertility rates are dropping and dropping. And
Hmm.
it's just out of control. And it's like, we need to come together because we can't handle it all on our own. And that reminds me too of, like, when we talk about in the last episode, the disconnection that we have from source or from God.
Hmm.
When we get back into community and we start realizing that it's okay to ask for help, it's okay to not have everything under control, in a sense of, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know how to do that. Someone else does.
And somebody else wants to help.
Yes. And you, like, I think about, like, the idea of going off grid, and I used to get paralyzed by the idea of, I have to learn how to do this. Oh my God, there's no time. And then I get stuck and make no progress. But when you have community, someone knows how to do one thing. Someone knows how to can and store vegetables and fruits. Someone knows how to build. Someone knows whatever,
Right.
electric, whatever it is. You don't have to know it all when there's community involved.
Right.
The same way the parents or the mother doesn't have to be the sole person that the child depends on. That you
Right.
can have a community of kids who watch and teach each other, and also all the mothers involved of knowing your kid, knowing the other people's kids, and that burden will just go away. And
Right.
can you imagine the energy within the mother's beings, within the waters, of when moms are freed of this
Yes.
idea of, my child ruins my life? Like, people don't want to talk about that, but
Mhm.
the mother takes on the role, and she loses
Right.
her identity unless she's at work. And when you come home, you're only mom. You're only talking to your kids. You lose your identity. By the time you get it back, you kind of forgot how to be yourself.
Right.
Would that wound exist had we had help, or where mothers can commune and help each other? I don't think so. I think that
Absolutely.
children would
I
become
agree with
blessings
you.
again. Hmm.
I agree with you 1,000,000%. I've watched a show called Sister Wives, and I remember multiple times the sister wives talking about how, okay, so this mom worked full time, so this mom watched all of the kids, and that's how it's been, like from villages, from back when we first, the settlers, and the pioneers. That's how it was. You came together, and the Indians. I mean, the women, they raised each other's children, and that's how it
Yeah.
is actually you know, in small communities as
Yeah.
well. It's
Yeah.
more like
A lot
that.
of
Not like,
indigenous. Hmm.
yeah, in the indigenous world, but it's cool that we're going to be able to get there. And so for people like us in this, because I would like to live in a community like that too. And I
Yeah.
was thinking like, oh my God, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. My arm's been injured from the injury before, so I don't have like full function of things. And there are other people that know other things. Don't get so stressed out about having to know everything.
Yes.
And that's just for us, because if we really have a lot of these micro schools popping up and we really start teaching these children how to self sustain themselves, they won't have to worry about living in a community, because like I have a nephew and he's very introverted and he likes to be kind of more by himself than with other people. And he's taught himself the skills throughout his whole life, pretty much on how to do things. So, if you're taught how to do that, you can also go and live on your own.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing about community is that you don't necessarily have to be forced into interaction. Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to live in a group home. Like, you'll still
But
have
it's
your
there if you
separation.
need it.
Exactly. And I think people would also feel less introvert, not that introverts would disappear, because some people are internal, some people are external, I understand that, but I also
Right.
feel that the rate is increasing because social anxiety, because people don't know how to communicate, because again, there's no trust, there's no community, family ties are breaking, and so people feel it's more important to just retreat inward. And if you had a
Mhm.
community of people who, you grew up with, whether you were a little shy, like I've always been more introverted growing up with kids, I didn't always become the most social, but had I
Right.
grown up and trusted them, it's not like they'd be strangers to me where I'd be afraid of them. It's
Mhm.
more trust that you would develop more. You would be able to share your gifts so much more.
Mhm.
And it really is such a beautiful thing, because then I also think of the elderly and how we're so busy that we just throw them away into homes because we can't take care of them when they're deteriorating. And they're being medicated and medicated and medicated to the point where they don't remember their own wisdom.
Mhm.
We used to have the wise women, the elderly women, the crones of the group come together and share their knowledge with the younger matriarchs. And also, with the masculine men handing down information from, grandfathers, of anything. All that, they're a rich
Mhm.
history. Everyone's a walking book of information. And
Mhm.
instead they're medicated. They don't remember. They can't. And we can say that, like, Alzheimer's, oh, that's increasing. Again, I want to link that to medications. I want to link that to how much people are taking. These things didn't just happen. People
And
use
the foods we
older
eat.
wisdom. Exactly.
Mhm.
And can you imagine how much easier it would be to be able to have a community where your kids, again, being able to raise, mothers aren't the sole provider, you have kind of everybody, and then also the elderly there with you,
Yeah. Well,
so that you can take care of it, you can trust them, you don't just have to hire help, who again, the only incentive is that they're being paid to be there, it's not a
mhm.
connection. And so
Right.
it would really rebuild, and I really see that as being the way to the future, like some people are going to dive into the isolation of the biotech and transhumanism and the agenda until it fails. But the rest of us are realizing we're not going that way. We're going back home.
Yeah. Well, with elderly people, oh my God, I love old people so much. I used to like in high school go and donate, not donate. I used to go
Volunteer.
and volunteer my time. My sister got in trouble and she like had to go to a retirement home. And since we were with each other after school, my parents never liked, worrying about us apart. I had to go with her. And I ended up loving it that after her duties were done, I kept going back.
Aw.
They're like the most amazing people in the world. And I have always thought they should be looked at. Okay, so I want to say like gods and goddesses, even though that's like maybe not really the right terminology for it, but we need to put them on pedestals.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, you're high and mighty, but like you are worth so much and we're
Yeah.
so grateful for you and you're so loved and we want you to be as comfortable as possible. We want to take care of you because you took care of us and you're
Yes.
wise. And like
To
they
give
should
back.
be
Yeah.
just like we take care of children. Okay. Like
Exactly.
we should be taking care of the elderly, you
I
know?
agree. I agree so much, so much.
Yep.
Like you said, it's not that, like, because we're all gods and goddesses, right? So they
Yes.
would be just older gods and goddesses, but in
I
a
like
way,
that.
what you're saying is basically they paved this path. The reason we're
Mhm.
alive is because they once were alive and chose to live, right, and chose to thrive and chose to hand these things
And
down.
chose to support us too,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
there's a saying, or I don't know if it's a saying or just a teaching or an understanding that, like, Native Americans or indigenous cultures have, where they say that, we're borrowing the land from our children, and that you need to take care of the land in a way for the next 7 generations, right? And we're so individualized in today's culture, especially in the West, that we're not looking like, oh, our parents did all this for us, everything they did to survive, and our children, we're cutting off these links and ties, and instead it should be getting stronger, holding your loved ones closer, and
Mhm.
documenting this kind of stuff, like, like, we're not, a lot of people don't know their history, their ancestry. A lot of people aren't, documenting the lineage.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
we know there's an interest in it because there's ancestry.com. People are doing their DNA tests to find out this type of stuff. But you can start that now. Like, I just did a post on my Instagram about what house is your son in, and that has a lot to do with, like, your birth time. And a lot of people don't have their birth time. These things aren't documented. Mothers are in hospitals, or
Hmm.
children are unwanted and, don't know their birth parents. They don't have their information. And so I find that we should be really starting to document our own lives
Hmm.
in such a way so that we can hand down later. Because if you don't have, like, I don't know a lot of my ancestors. My parents, like, I know kind of where we came from. Like, I'm Italian predominantly. There's some Irish, there's some German, but I don't know the percentages. I don't know where
I
they
have
come from.
all of those too, by the way, to add to the
Freaking way.
more of the similarities we have. But I have Mexican in me too. But yeah, yeah,
I
like
love
my
it.
great grandfather's from Italy.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I know I'm predominantly Italian. I know it's like Sicilian, Napoleon, but that's all I have. I don't know these people. I don't know when they came. I feel so disconnected. And a part of healing nature and ourselves is to go back to our roots.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was just taking care of my snake plant today that sits besides me. It's a fairly dark room, and I overwatered it months ago, and I realized some root rot was occurring. I was like, oh no, my plant. So I started pulling these pieces out to heal the plant and propagate the new ones. And they're going to take months to grow roots, but they will. And so my point of this reference is, if you don't remember, or your roots weren't passed down to you, propagate your damn self and start
Yeah.
making some roots. You
Yeah.
can, you can do it at any moment. Start documenting. And then when you have your child, or whatever, I believe home births and water births are going to become much more prominent, especially in
Oh yeah.
community settings, because that's what women do. We group together, and we support the pregnant women and the birthing process and the magic
Hmm.
of that. And you can just start writing it down yourself. And I
Yeah.
think that it's so important that we hand down this information, because we're all a part of history.
Hmm.
We waited for the history books to be written, by the winners of wars, and we wonder why we're so disconnected. Well, is any of that true? Does anyone have their lineage where it talks about their time? It doesn't need to be historically factual.
Right.
It's your family's reality. And I believe that it's important to start handing down and realizing that every day is a moment of history. Every
Hmm.
day. Every
Well,
subtle thing is so important.
and you can actually access your lineage
Mhm.
through like past life regression.
Yes.
And like that's another thing I think we should be taught in school. We should be
Yes.
taught how to like identify our gifts and our abilities,
Hmm.
and then to train on them and work on them so we can help other people, because I'm certain you have abilities I don't have, and I have abilities you don't have, and
Hmm.
just like every person in the world, and they're all different and we can help each other. But
Yeah.
so for people, because like my dad's mom, my grandmother, she's very in ancestry.com. I have so much information she recently gave to me about 2 years ago, and I was recently looking through it. It's very interesting, but
Hmm.
not everybody has that. But like I was saying, and like I was saying earlier, actually, like, oh, all this bad stuff. Well, guess what? We're badass beings. Like, there was
Yes.
so much magic within us, even for something like that. You can even still tap into that.
Yes.
You could tap into
Yes.
that information, and it's sad that we're being hidden. All these things are being hidden from us and kept from us because I'm not saying you're sad and depressed over it and you're losing too much sleep over it, but certain things that people haven't been able to figure out or address
Yeah.
properly, we could literally easily figure that stuff out on our own if we've been taught the right
Yeah.
ways to do certain things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Because we're so much more than just physical, right? So we're
Hmm.
talking predominantly about the physical reality and things like that.
Right.
But like you said, past life regression. And some people don't believe in past lives. That's okay. But to them, I ask, if you understand that energy can't be created nor destroyed, where do you go? You don't
Right.
just disappear, right? So something has to happen.
Well, and even if it's not a past life, it's even just maybe tapping into that energy source to be able to connect with it and pull in, information
Hmm.
from your ancestors, not necessarily like your past lives too, but yeah. But there's just so many great things out there for us to discover and to learn. And today's the day.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's not, it's
Yeah.
always today. And what we're living through right now is so amazing and beautiful. And I feel like through all of this chaos, we're gonna bloom. I mean,
Yes.
we really are. There's so
Yes.
much emerging right now. So
They
many.
say, this is when you're in the darkness, you're in the seed planted stage, right? And the collective is definitely in the dark, and there's a lot of confusion, lies, fear tactics, poisonings. There's a lot of darkness right now, but you can choose to either be surrounded by that and only see that, or realize that you just got planted in some soil and now it's your chance to say, okay, I'm going to bloom the future that I want. I'm going to
Mhm.
find the soul tribes and connect with others who see this vision of the future, because we have a choice in that. We have a choice in which direction the world is going in, and we don't have to be fooled by the mass media just because everyone is seeing it and believing it. That's
Right.
fading. TV, all TV ratings are at the historical low since TV was created. So,
Mhm.
we're at this time now where we're choosing the narratives, we're choosing what we want to participate in,
Yeah.
and we can choose wisely.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree. And with the help of others and with the help of
Mhm.
people speaking up, talking about it, and sharing our knowledge and our excitement for things,
Yeah. Excitement
it's
for the future, right? No more doom and gloom. We still can talk about it because other people haven't seen it yet, but
right.
understand, and every time that we talk about it, that we're still so excited for this future. We still know that there's so much potential within our own beings, therefore everyone, because there's so many of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And ultimately, if every single person would literally just focus on themselves, the whole world would be a better place. So instead of me worrying about what you think about what I look like or what I say or how, passing judgment, if I worried about myself and how I could treat other people and just be kind,
Hmm.
you know, the world's just going to end up being a better place.
Yeah.
You know,
And
it's
that's the
it's
most
just a
simple
one.
thing that we can say right now is, when the world is crazy, just stop looking at it, zoom into yourself and say, what can I do today to be a better person? What can I do to make my life better? What can I do to help those around me? And if we
Mhm.
all started choosing that frequency, which we are starting to do, again, waves are going to ripple out and we are going to make such big changes.
Yes, yes, I agree. And I talked to you about this before, but on 2/22,
Hmm.
22, I had that experience in the fast food drive-through at In-N-Out.
Hmm.
I went there with the intentions of what can I do today to make somebody else happy and put a smile on someone else's face. And I went there with the intentions of paying for the person behind me. And lo and behold, I pull up to pay for myself, and the guy in front of me paid for me. And
I
he was
love
the
that
fifth
story.
person in a row to pay for the person behind them. So I was the one. I paid for the guy behind me, looked back in my rearview mirror, saw the guy pointing behind me to the person behind him. So, who knows how long that went on.
Yeah.
And yes, it's energy frequency that we can all tap into and pick up on. And it's all around us. I know there's a lot of doom and gloom, but there's
Yeah.
literally a lot of joy and happiness all around us as
Yes.
well.
Yes. And I love that story so much because it shows how you were even tapping into that field before you got there, right?
Yes,
Like
yes.
you weren't the only one to have that thought. Therefore, you were receiving the frequency that was there, right? This higher knowing, you were tapped into.
Mm-hmm.
You were like, oh, I'm going to do this. Little did you know, this energy was already occurring, and you were tuning in. I think that's so fantastic
Yeah.
to kind of shine a light on the fact that that is one of our otherworldly abilities, is that there's energy here, frequencies we can tune into, and we're so divinely connected at all times. And I love that
Mm-hmm.
you felt that. Not only did you feel it, you did it, and the person behind you did it. Fascinating. I love it so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Me too.
I think this is a wonderful spot to end on. How about you?
I agree. Yes.
I think this is great. Um, Again, thank you everyone for joining. Feel free to comment and share and tell us about your own experiences. Tell us about how you're feeling. What world are you co-creating? Have you found your tribe? And do you resonate? We'd love to hear it.